And welcome to another episode of Experts Speak. I'm Michael DeLon. Today I am talking with S.J. Maranville. And well, S.J., dude, thank you for being my guest today.
It's totally my privilege, really my honor.
Well, it's going to be a great conversation. And we're talking about having vision for business. So SJ helps business owners, especially those in the startup phase, really find a great strategy for business and business growth. And if you're watching this, you're probably looking at him and going, okay, why has he got glasses on? Well, he's going to tell you, I'm going to tell you that he's totally blind. And it's really fascinating to me how he's been so successful and how he helps business owners. And I just can't wait to get into this, SJ. So let's just jump into the deep end and talk about having vision for business. But tell me, how in the world did you get doing what you're doing today?
In fact, what I do is I work with startup ventures. I'm an advisor to them. I lead them through that chaotic, complex process of starting and scaling their high growth ventures. And I'm going to say to you that how I got started with this was really a long time ago. Even as a child, I have a love for learning. I'm one of those weird kinds of kids that when I would come home from my classes in the morning or in the afternoon from my elementary school classes, I would go into my bedroom and I would practice teaching. I would take what it was that I learned during the day and I pretended that I had a classroom and I was teaching them. Well, fast forward a couple of decades from there, I'm in a PhD program studying business administration, more specifically studying business strategy.
Okay.
And there was a particular theory that just absolutely bowled me over. The theory is called organizational learning. And the basic concept here is that that organizations are made up of humans. And
Mm-hmm.
humans have the innate ability to learn. And consequently, when you bring together a group of humans who are learning into an organization, that organization learns. Well, I took that concept that deals with organizational learning in general, and I've applied it more specifically to working with startup ventures. Because not only do I have this really keen interest in learning, I am really quite driven by business competition.
Mm-hmm.
And as I know that you're aware, our listeners are aware, startup ventures have a very high mortality rate. A
Yeah.
lot of them fail. And I've looked for that answer to that question about why do some ventures succeed while others fail? And this theory about organizational learning made all the sense in the world to me. It is about learning. And those ventures that learn the fastest, learn the best, those are the ones that gain the intelligence advantage. And for me, that intelligence advantage is the ultimate advantage. So I went along and with my PhD, I became a professor, still working with this theory of organizational learning. But also, during the time that I was a doctoral student, I had started Maranville Enterprises. Uh, my real mission is to help startup entrepreneurs to grow their ventures. I want to be the guide by the entrepreneur side.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as I'm a professor and also working with entrepreneurs, I reach a fork in the road where I have to decide which direction do I really want to go. Do I want to be a professor? Do I want to be an advisor to entrepreneurs? And as I look down the road, I had tenure as a professor. I could see what I was going to do for the next 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Because being a professor is very much like doing the same thing, a year at a time for 20 years. Working with entrepreneurs, though, I don't have a clue what I'm doing 20 minutes in advance, much less 20 years in advance.
Yeah.
And And so I thought to myself, you know, at the end of life, I would much rather say that I had lived a wild ride than a mild ride. And
Mm-hmm.
so I made the choice to go in the direction of advising entrepreneurs. If you notice, really what's at the core of it, again, is still learning and teaching. Yeah, as a professor, obviously, I was learning and teaching, but as a professor, I was teaching in a classroom.
Yeah.
As an advisor to entrepreneurs, I'm still teaching, but I'm
Mm.
teaching entrepreneurs in a boardroom. And so, you know, my real job is to accelerate the learning of entrepreneurs so that they can grow their fledgling startups into gazelle scale ups and ultimately into unicorn shakeups.
I love it. I love it. And I love all of your the way you weave words together, right? Of a wild ride versus a mild ride. And I'm going to throw one at you, and it may not be totally accurate. Going back to your when you were a professor teaching, because I've been the student in lots of professorial classes, and some of them were not very exciting. They were kind of boring. So I'm going to say you've moved from a board room to the board room, right?
I love that play on words.
There you go. So let's talk about then these startups. They come to you, you start working with them. They have a wild idea. They're out to honestly change the world, make a huge impact doing something, but they've got some challenges. Because I think a lot of them, and I'm speaking totally out of space here, dude. I have not been a startup for 13 years. But I think a lot of times I'm guessing they want to do some things, but they may not have the seasoned experience that you have. They may not know where to get money. They may not know how to put together a great business strategy. And that's kind of how you come alongside of them and dare I say mentor them. Is I don't even know if that's the right word. Is that kind of a do I kind of have it?
You absolutely have it.
Okay.
You know, I will describe the three kinds of entrepreneurs or three kinds of ventures. There's a fledgling venture that the entrepreneur has an idea. Maybe they even have a product. Maybe they even have some sales, but they're
Mm-hmm.
not consistent sales. And so the job that I have in working with a fledgling startup is to help them develop their business model, validate that model, and make those sales consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Then the next stage is this gazelle venture. So a gazelle is a very fast running animal. And what we want to do is to take that venture that's been a fledgling and it has consistent sales, and we want to grow those sales just as quickly and as high as possible. Now, not all ventures have the ability to become a unicorn. A unicorn, by definition, is a venture that has $1 billion valuation.
Okay.
I have had the good fortune of working with some unicorns. However, the gazelles, we're going to take them as far as they can go.
Mm-hmm.
So oftentimes I will, just as you mentioned, I'll start out working with an entrepreneur who has a fledgling venture. And oftentimes the key is that I know what they don't know but need to know. And
Mm-hmm.
so they come to me for that kind of insight. That's why I describe myself as the guide by the entrepreneur side. They are
Mm-hmm.
still the entrepreneur, they are my boss, but I'm the partner by their side, helping them to make very difficult decisions that really at those early stages can at any time devastate the business, if not completely end the business's future.
Sure. It's interesting. I relate that years ago when I was 15 years old. I was in a Boy Scout club and we flew airplanes, and we had a flight instructor who was our scoutmaster guy. And so I was flying airplanes when I was 15, and one wrong move and you can end a flight really fast, right, in your life. And I've never really thought about that until you just said that. But in business, you're right, especially a startup business, because I can only imagine the pressure, um, the strategy that has to be in place, and the decision-making ability. And I think one of the cool things about having a guide like USJ is, how do I say it? Dare I say, you're impartial. It's not like you've got something to sell to these organizations, these entrepreneurs. You're there selling your services, your brain power, your expertise, so that you build that partnership of trust to go, I'm here to help you succeed and go from fledgling to gazelle, maybe to unicorn. But going, is that right? You're alongside of them, and you're counseling them with your experience so that they can make better decisions, right?
That's exactly what I do.
Okay.
And maybe even a bit different from some of the peers that I would have that provide expertise to startup ventures. I really consider at my source that I'm a learner and a teacher. Now, there's a difference with the advisor who is simply the teacher. You know, they have their experience or a framework, and they're telling the entrepreneur, here's what you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of telling the entrepreneur what you need to do, I like to work with them in helping them to develop the skill of strategic thinking for themselves.
Yeah.
I like to not only be an expert in my field, but I like to develop experts along with me.
See, and that's cool. That's a neat distinction, because when you help somebody develop that skill of strategic thinking, that's going to impact their life. That's going to help them go onto another venture down the road potentially and help other people, right?
Absolutely. You know, and the key here for me is that when I help them to become the expert, some people will say to me, "Well, you're just working your way out of a job. You know, you're teaching them to do what it is that you do for them." And really, much to the contrary, when I am learning and I'm helping them to learn, now we raise the level of our combined learning, and we're able to do so much more together as we continue to learn and get smarter and execute on what it is that we're continuing to learn. So I don't ever find that I'm working myself out of a job partnering with an entrepreneur. I just see that we're developing greater capacity to accomplish what that entrepreneur wants to accomplish.
I'm 100% in agreement there, man. It's because, well, you and I both know, as they grow in their entrepreneurial journey, they're going to have more challenges to face, that they're going to need you.
Oh,
But at
yeah.
the same time, you're learning, I'm sure, from each one of them, that just adds to your base of knowledge and expertise that you bring to the next entrepreneur you walk with, right?
That is so true. In fact, you know, I have a book that I've been working on that's titled Train Your Unicorn.
Mm-hmm.
Gain the intelligence advantage by scaling a venture that learns. And so my real key in working with entrepreneurs is to develop a learning culture. And of course, that learning culture begins even when I'm working with the single entrepreneur. They don't even have an organization other than themselves. So they are the organization that needs to scale up its learning.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, as they add more people to their organization, now it becomes organizational learning rather than individual learning. But I really do see that learning is the key behind venture success.
Yeah, that's interesting. And do you find that entrepreneurs who are developing these ventures, the startups and things, do they come to you with that similar mindset, that they are um, to be teaching their teammates as they grow their company, or do you find that they are just head bent, headstrong on building this thing? Where's that lie?
That is a really profound distinction that you're making, because that most definitely exists. I fortunately uh, have the privilege of not working with entrepreneurs who are not teachable. In other words, when an entrepreneur works with me, they understand my principles and the way that I work. if they are teachable. I suppose the way I'll say it is, if I believe that my skills at teaching are as good as they are, then I only want to work with entrepreneurs who are as skilled at learning as I am at teaching,
Mm.
because that's the only way that we're really going to reach success.
Mm-hmm.
So when an entrepreneur works with me, they already have a growth mindset. They have a learner's mindset. And I'd like to make the distinction here between a learner's mindset and a learned mindset.
Okay.
So, the learned mindset, this is the mindset that's fixed. That mindset already knows everything. The entrepreneur is stubborn and has a product, and they're going to do it their way or the highway. On the other hand, there is a learner mindset that says, I've identified a market related problem and I want to find the best solution, not just my solution, but I
Mm.
want to find the best solution. So I'm listening to my advisor, I'm listening most certainly to the market. I'm going to come up with the best idea. That's a learner. And I work with learners, not with entrepreneurs who are learned.
That's good. I like that because I can only imagine, SJ, how many venture entrepreneurs starting these new companies, if they're a learner, their product gets to market eventually. They start growing, become successful. But I wonder how much that initial idea has actually morphed and changed because of the market information, because of what they've learned, because they were willing to make the changes to meet the demands of the market. When it becomes successful, they can look back and go, yeah, that was kind of the animal I created, but I had 3 legs on it. Now it has 5. Does that happen?
Just yesterday, in fact, I had posted a message on LinkedIn that said, no business plan ever survives first contact with a customer.
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
so
it,
true.
there are so many iterations that will happen over the startup life of a new venture
Mm-hmm.
that oftentimes the product that actually goes to market, it is very different, a completely different pivot from where the product was in its initial conception.
Very cool. Well, that's good. That confirmed some things to me. One of the emotional aspects of what you do, I as I look at it, is you're really walking alongside as a guide, but you're breathing hope into these entrepreneurs who are. I could only imagine being at the bottom of Mount Everest, right? With this idea, this venture I want to start. I've got something, and there's just really not a way to get there, or it's going to be a long journey. And now I find SJ who gives me hope and direction and guidance and connections and all of this. Is that a fair summary?
It is a very fair summary. Hope is so central. Uh, Maybe a good way of describing entrepreneurship is that it is a journey fraught with problems, occasionally punctuated with a success. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of need for hope because there is rejection at every turn in
Yeah.
entrepreneurship, especially if you are creating products that are truly either disrupting an existing market or discovering a new market. You are most definitely going to run into rejection.
Yeah.
And and yeah, as important as it is to be the expert working with the entrepreneur, I also need to be a confidant to the
Right.
entrepreneur.
Yeah.
They need to be able to say things to me that they wouldn't say to anyone else
Mm-hmm.
because I'm a safe person. I am a part of them.
Yeah. We all need a place to, as I would call, vent once in a while,
Yes,
to go, okay, I got that off my chest now, and have you not think of me poorly. To go, all right,
yes.
that's just normal. Come on now. And I think that's one of the great aspects of having somebody like you, SJ, just walk with you And I tell entrepreneurs that I work with a lot that everybody needs a coach. And at one level, you're a coach, you're a guide, right? But we all need that because we need that outside perspective. We need that encouragement. We need that safe place to vent, to run a wacky idea past you. Okay, I'm just thinking of this. Can I just share it with you without you getting out your bazooka and shooting it down? It's a very interesting idea, Michael. Now let me ask you a question. Redirecting me. We all need that. And especially if you're a startup. So do you work with startups that are already going and those who just have the ideas? Who should be reaching out to you? And we'll get to how, but who should be reaching out to you?
At the earliest stage, I will work with entrepreneurs who even have an idea. Sometimes those ideas, they are phenomenal. And if I can have the pleasure of being able to work alongside a visionary entrepreneur with a great idea that's going to change the world, disrupting a new market, or disrupting existing markets, or discovering a new market, I most definitely want to work alongside of them. And I will just as easily, though, work with entrepreneurs who they've demonstrated that their business model is valid and they're growing fast. Uh, I work with entrepreneurs along any of those continuums. The key here is, for me, it's not so much what stage they're at or even what their business model is. What my real key is, again, if I think that I am a really great teacher, I want to have an entrepreneur who is a really great learner.
Mm-hmm.
So I assess whether I work with entrepreneurs based on their ability to be taught and to become learners.
Very cool. Well, how if somebody's out there and they've got this idea or they've already started, but they need a guide like you, SJ, where do they go? What's the best place for them to connect with you?
I would absolutely love for them to connect with me on LinkedIn. I
Okay.
am currently and always in search of visionary entrepreneurs. I want the best founders, the best facilitators, the best funders. I want to connect with them. So if they would send me an invitation to connect on LinkedIn, I will most definitely accept that invitation, and we'll begin a conversation that can change both of our lives as well as the world.
That's great. I love that. Okay, we're going to make sure that in the show notes, we're going to have SJ's LinkedIn connection there so that you can reach out to him and begin that conversation of your idea and how he might be the guide beside you as long as you're teachable, right? And take what could be your fledgling idea right now and grow it into a fast moving gazelle. And who knows, you might turn into a unicorn. I mean, I love those three categories. SJ, this has been a phenomenal conversation. We could go on for a long time, I think, because I've got lots of other questions, but I want to give people the opportunity to re-listen to this, check out the show notes, connect with him on LinkedIn, and see how he can help you have greater vision for your business and be the guide next to your side. So, SJ, man, thank you so much for being my guest, but for doing what you're doing to really make a big impact in people's lives and helping business owners grow.
Thank you, Michael. And to our listeners, venture with vision.